And we are live. Anna, what are you drinking?
Uh, some red wine, winking owl, Shiraz.
Nice.
Oh, the owl.
What are you having?
I am having the Balvenie.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. How's it? How is
It's
it?
wonderful. It's very
Nice.
good.
I have a bottle of Coke.
I also
This
have a bottle
episode,
of Diet Pepsi. So
this episode brought to you by Coca-Cola products.
brought to you by things you can sometimes find at a convenience store.
Yeah.
Guess my stream is brought to you by Aldi. I didn't get any of their Aldi wear when it was out.
Well, this is going to be a high energy show from the looks of it. What are we doing next week? Is that when we're doing 45 years?
years.
And then after that, we'll do Guardians 3,
hmm
which I have now seen.
I saw it on Monday, so I am prepared.
Excellent. I will make time to watch 45 years on the 45 years of driving that I'm doing in the next 3 days
Oh, that's right. You're going to yeah.
to Kentucky, then
Yeah.
North Carolina,
Yeah.
then back home.
No
Yep.
car.
How long is he out in North Carolina?
Until the week after school starts.
Okay.
Like technically, the job started this past Saturday,
hmm
but he has his last final tomorrow afternoon, so he couldn't really skip out on that.
Sure.
Like some people were telling him, like, you should check with your professors and see if you could take your finals early. And it was like, or maybe check with the place and see if you can miss the first week of rehearsal.
This is the way.
You don't really want to rush your finals.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how confident you are. I mean, some finals really are.
Yeah, this was one of his more academic semesters
Okay.
because he likes his acting classes. So, but there are times when you have to make up for, a whole semester of acting classes with actual classrooms that have tests
And bullshit.
yeah.
Tests and papers and all that.
Yep. But yeah, so I'm picking him up tomorrow, throwing his shit in storage, and heading to North Carolina.
Okay.
And he'll miss like the first. They tend to start on like a Tuesday with their semester, so he will miss the first 4 days of the semester. Which, I mean, the first class is always like going through the syllabus.
Yeah.
And I think he only has like, each class only meets like twice a week. So he's really only missing one class session.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And considering he's a theater major and this is like
Theater stuff.
practicum, this is stuff where he can actually he can work toward equity. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. No, it's really cool.
Yeah. So, I'm spending a couple of nights in a hotel room in the middle of nowhere each place. So, though Cherokee has a casino, so I could go there. I'm not going to stay in their casino, however, because Friday night at that casino is like $400 just for a room.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just
Well, now you got to stay to find out.
I'm not going to.
What comes with that room?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm guessing it's just, Friday night or maybe Mother's Day weekend, or I'm not
Oh, there it
100%
is.
sure, but like even on like the discount sites it's $400 a night, but if you go to like the casino website it's $500 a night
Yeah.
just for the weekends. And I'm like,
Oh God.
no, no, I'm gonna hotwire that no-tell motel that's down the street, that's in the parking lot of a grocery store. Yeah, which is still like 110 a night, but it's much, much
Yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah.
Murray, though, that happened in place. There's not going to be much going on Thursday night. Well, I mean, there probably will be some kids partying with, their end, the end of their
Yeah.
semester.
Crashing parties, Tony. Just walk in.
Probably.
Pretend you're a professor.
Yeah.
I don't think professors don't do that a whole lot anymore. For good reason.
I could start a new trend, though.
Yeah, but college kids are like,
You do the un-me too. Single-handedly.
Not me, too.
Not me, because guess what? I'm not a professor.
Right, I'm not. You can call me doctor if you want.
I don't even play one on TV.
Right?
I'm saying that now.
Not even on a podcast. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Hey, this is Tony.
This is Anna.
And this is David.
And we are the Backseat Producers. And tonight we are talking about Clerks 3.
Yep.
David, what did you think of it?
I realized halfway through this movie I did not like it, but then by the end I thought it was well done.
All right, Anna?
I went in planning to not like it. Didn't like it for maybe the first 15, 20 minutes, but then was hooked. Loved it. It just got better and better for me.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I am a fan of the Clerks, the original Jersey trilogy that is now like 6 movies long or something.
Yeah.
Of Kevin Smith's stuff like Clerks, Mallrats, even Dogma. He's gotten a little off in the last couple of years. And I've not been a huge fan of things like Red State and Tusk. They're not for me. This one, I really enjoyed. I thought the ending was I thought it wrapped up everything that happened watching these guys at these different stages in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for the first half of the movie, I was really frustrated that it was just so utterly self-indulgent until I realized that was the fucking point.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, well, this is doing that really well. So I think among us, I'm probably the only one who was a fan of like the Monkey Island series and like got really into it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one came out in like, I don't know, sometime in the mid 90s or something. Well, last year or the year before, the like main dude who'd done the first one and then like 3 sequels, they released the newest and last game. And it's the plot of the first game is you're Guybrush Threepwood and your goal, the point of the game is to become a pirate. Okay? So they do that. They do like a breakout sequel that's like a massively successful thing. Other games happen, which are less successful because they are worse. And then 25 something years later, the same people get together and they make a game. And the storyline of the game is Guybrush is telling the stories, like these fantastic adventures he had in his youth, to his kids. And the entire game is 25 years ago, we were dumb kids who made this adventure game, and it got like way more popular than we expected it to be. And 25 years later, we're doing the final game that we're going to make. and looking back on it. And so the parallels in the story were like, you know, real obvious, but also real touching. And then like the final thing that you get in the game is like a page from Ron Gilbert's, like just a page from his journal where he's like, hey, this is what we learned over 25 years.
Yep.
So it's like
Yep.
real. So like I was really into that, and that's exactly what this movie was. Like Kevin Smith revisiting kind of like the dumb glory days that he had. And so like nothing in this movie summed that up better for me than when they're talking about having him do the shoot, like the principal photographer, like shooting for the movie.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, we could shoot it black and white and then do all this other stuff like around it. Like,
Yeah.
Like, the meta commentary there is so fucking good and on point.
Well, and I am like, I know a lot about the first movie, especially because I've watched the movie and like multiple variations of like director's commentary for Clerks and for Clerks 2 and for some of the other stuff that he's done. And I've watched and like own the Evening with Kevin Smith, uh, like his stand-up routines that he has done at cons and then ended up touring with him. So like I knew a lot of the stuff that happened, and because I've seen those movies, especially the first one, I've seen it a lot. As soon as a few of the people were showing up on screen, I was like, I see exactly what they're doing. They're actually getting everyone they could who was from the first movie back as much as possible. And to my understanding, I think the only person that they of one of the major named principal characters that they had that they couldn't get back was because she died. Was the girl who played Caitlin Bree, which was the girl that Dante was he was pining over. It was his lost love, who dated the Asian design major.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they did a really great job of bringing all those people back, and most of them aren't actors. Most of them really can't act, but they did a noble job of it.
I mean, most of the people in the movie can't act.
No,
Like the dude who plays Dante is bad. He's terrible.
in the first movie, he was better than Randall. Randall, I don't know what happened especially between Clerks 2 and Clerks 3, but Jeff Anderson, who plays Randall, like, he was actually doing really well acting his role. Like, it was good, especially by comparison to Dante.
Yeah, I mean, because basically the first movie he just does stand up.
Yeah.
It's just a vehicle for him to do stand up while Dante is there to straight man it.
Well, and that was the role that Kevin Smith wrote for himself. He wrote he wrote Randall for himself, and then realized he couldn't direct and
do that
at the same time. So that's when he went. That's when he did Silent Bob.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something going on here, I think, too, that like fits with the acting, where it's like playing with like, because people like the translation of life to a story and how it, like, if you try to do it straight up, it doesn't look real. Kind of like if you get non-actors to act like they do in their everyday life. Maybe they genuinely are, but it's actually gonna not look real.
Yes.
Because and you can't just like use spoken language as dialogue. It doesn't work as dialogue in a story. Real language doesn't sound real once you put it into a narrative. And I don't know, like they were playing with that a lot back and forth, and I feel like having that. And I didn't feel like the acting was that bad. Maybe I just got used to it. In the beginning, I felt it.
I felt it. I especially felt it from Dante in the last act, like the third act. It especially when he tried to play drunk, it was not good.
Mm-hmm.
I could
It
see
was
that.
it was somebody acting drunk,
Yeah.
but it was also okay. I mean, these people have never advanced to the level of professional actor. I mean, they have done other things just because of the association they have with Kevin Smith, but there's no reason to assume that they would have gone on and done more. And
Yeah,
just
but
the
then,
fact that he keeps bringing those people back to play those roles, there's a there's something special about that in the loyalty of it, in the loyal. And there's I think there's a meta commentary there about not only the loyalty to his friends, but the loyalty to fans who have been with him the whole time. To people like me who've seen Clerks a shit ton of times
Mm-hmm.
and recognize, like, at one point they had this woman smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, fuck, that's the little girl who smoked the cigarette in the first Clerks movie. She's an adult now, but that's the same one. Like, I just recognize her in profile. It's like, that is awesome. Like, because the
Mm-hmm.
joke doesn't stand because she's an adult now.
yeah.
But the fact that like, they brought her back to do that was so fun.
Yep. Yeah, every single one of those cameo type things was, it's like, oh, god damn it, I do remember this movie.
Yeah.
But it was like also super jarring watching the final cut of the movie, which was just Clerks, like just the original movie.
Uh-huh.
Like, and seeing them young and then them watching themselves young, like that scene was really goddamn good.
Like, I got chills. Honestly, I teared up during that point, because by that point you knew what was happening.
Yeah, you knew what was, yeah.
Because Dante, at that point, Dante's in the theater, and I think she had even shown up with them, and it's
Rosario
like,
Dawson.
yeah, it's like, he's not coming back from this, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts, but it's okay. And I think the other, like, I like wept when Dante got up at the graveside and said, "You're not even supposed to be here today." It was like, I'm done. Like, I'm just gonna watch the rest of this movie blurry from here on out, because like, it got me. I am that age. I was the age of those guys for every one of those movies. Kevin Smith and I are like about 6 months apart in age. So like, this is this is the age. Like, I'm right there alongside these guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't cry at the graveside thing. The end was rough.
Yeah.
The end was actually been a rough week for movies since I saw Guardians on Monday.
Mm,
It's actually
Yep.
been a real rough week for movies.
yep.
But it's also like interesting. Like Kevin Smith did a lot of interesting stuff here. Like, because Clerks was shot like at night in that place
hmm
because they couldn't afford to do anything better, and that was the movie he produced. And now with all of the money and clout that he's got to make a, in quotes, professional movie, it's just a movie about making the original Clerks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
there's like a good symmetry to that.
It leans really hard into the nostalgia of itself,
Mm-hmm.
but also makes fun of the nostalgia of it itself at the same time, which is really great. Like, um the cat shitting in the litter box, because like the lore behind that is they had that cat there, and the minute they turned the camera on, it shat. Like it like nothing all day, and the minute they turned the camera on, it was like thunk. Like you could hear it on the audio, and it walks away. There's a turd just in there, and like, okay. Where in this they made it look like that's what they planned on doing, but no, that was just the way things happened.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the cat shits in the box.
Yeah, and like Julie asked me when Bob gave the speech about, yeah, we're gonna shoot it in black and white because, it's just the colors in here are shit, and it'll make it look like it's shot through the lens of
A security
a
camera.
security camera and all this,
And really
Julie was
highlight the soullessness of capitalism.
like, Julie was like, "Is that the reason why?" I was like, "No, they couldn't afford color film. That's why. That's why he did that. He could afford it."
Mm-hmm.
But it worked.
But I like that commentary.
It's great. It
That
really is.
commentary is really goddamn good. That like art is so subjectively perceptive that like you can recontextualize, oh, we didn't have any fucking money, to this was an intentional design choice.
Well, and I mean, I don't know for sure, but it almost feels like everything Bob said in that point, like the angle that he was going for with all that, feels like it was somebody who did some like critical review of the film, and this is what they put on it, where he's just like, no, I just couldn't afford color.
Yeah.
But it's fun to lean into that now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's something about like how you, because I mean, like a lot of those 90s movies, indies movies in the mid 90s were so, that sort of slice of life, and continuing in that universe of, I mean, Dogma doesn't do it, and it's in the same, but like this very slice of life every day. I mean, like part of life is you get older and then you die, and people around you die. And there was something interesting about like the idea of once you make a movie about something, or a piece of art, trying to represent something, you like cap it off, you kill it in some way. And even if Dante hadn't died. And I forget, what are the spoiler, I guess we don't, what are the spoiler rules here?
It's spoil what you want. I mean,
Yeah.
All right.
if we're really feeling like it, we can just throw that bad boy up.
But oh yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, and so yeah, and then there's something like with that of like, as we're living life, how there's a certain level of like how things seem to stay the same or stay at a certain, because when it sort of switches over to the original Clerks and the footage switches over as he's watching it, it just sort of made me think a lot of how with people you've known since, at least for me, with people I've known since I was very young, I see them as the same. I was looking at a picture of a friend of mine from, like, we've been friends since fourth grade. And she's my age. She's in her early 40s. She has 3 kids. And she looks the same, like,
Yeah.
I still see, like,
Mm-hmm.
like, I see that she's older, but also she seems the same.
Yeah. Yeah, because like your formative idea of a person is like who they are when you met them, right? So like one of my friend's kids, like one of my friend's daughters, looks just like him, and like she looks like him at the age that I met him. And so it is like deeply distressing to look at his daughter and be like, oh my God, you look exactly like Matt when I met him.
She's the same age as when you met him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he is. So yeah.
Mhm.
And Yeah, so it's, and and the same too, like with parents, like I have this fixed image in my head of my mom, and from when I was about, like when I think about like the image I have of her, it's from when I was about 11 or 12. And from time to time, it'll hit me, oh, she's getting older and she's looking significantly older than, you know,
And then,
yeah, which would have been younger than I am now. And
Yeah.
so I see her like right at 40. And funnily enough, 11 or 12 was about when I was almost as tall as she was and probably could see her, eye to eye for the
Mhm.
first time, really. And so, yeah, but I like still in my mind.
Yeah, I I agree with that completely, and I have that same, I don't know the best word for it, like dysphoria
Mhm, mhm.
about it, um, with Julie. I mean, we've we've been a couple since '96, and I still, when I look at her, that's the image I see, you know, and the only time I disconnect from that is when I am going back and looking through old photos.
Yeah,
And it's like I can see her at every stage, but it's kind of disconnected from that in how I see her now. And it's like, oh, wait, no, you did look different. And it's only when I'm looking through many photos, it's like
yeah,
I see a progression over time. And the same with my parents or my brother, it's the people that you've known for a long ass time, you know. I mean, David, I mean, we've known each other now for
15.
almost 17 years. We met each other 16 and a half years ago. And the biggest difference is that for us, for what I see in him, is the differences in hair length and whether
Hair
or not he
color.
has a clean shaven face. I mean,
The
like
hair color.
your hair has changed color a little bit,
Yeah.
especially on your chin.
Yeah, my muzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first to go for me too. But it was it was touching when it went back to the original Clerks.
Yeah.
And and then Randall even fucking called it out. He goes, "That's what I see. I don't see you now. I see you then."
yeah,
Hmm.
Because that's the way it was. And that's the way it's a nice meta commentary for the fans, because that's what you see. Even though we've seen Clerks 2 and now Clerks 3, you've seen the progression of those people. But when you see them, it's like, oh yeah, they really did look different. And oh my Christ, those two are babies in that
Oh my
movie.
god. Oh my god.
yeah. Because there was this sort of weird over the course of the movie. There was the initial shock of, oh boy, they've gotten older.
Hmm.
Do I look that much older? Like, which was the second thought.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
also,
Oh fuck, I'm old.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. 'Cause, I mean, I saw Clerks for the first time. It would have been it was several years after it came out. It would have been 99, but
Okay.
like in this weird land cafe, on a filthy couch that just like they'd show indie movies and then they like people played land games. There were only black lights. It was a lot of fun. And I remember so these were people a little older than me, but not a ton.
Mhm.
And well, and I guess like by the time I would have seen it, like I would have been their age. And so I think there was that like weird piece. But then funnily enough, as time went on, they almost like switched to where they looked younger to me because I didn't notice at first when they started showing the original Clerks.
Oh,
It took me a second
yeah.
to realize, oh, wait.
I realized as soon as he pulled up and went to the lock, it was like this is from the
Yeah.
original movie.
Mhm.
And I mostly recognized it because Dante was, as most of us were,
Yeah, it was
a
thinner.
lot smaller,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
just generally smaller.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
they're splicing in the original.
Well, I
Yeah.
actually thought for me it wasn't the size; it was the hair color, and I just
Oh
thought it
yeah.
was because it was like the shot's dark at night, and I didn't realize that. Oh, his hair is just actually dark again.
Yeah. Well, they did a little bit of that toward the end of Clerks 3 when they're going and shooting some of those scenes. They had them really try to look in some ways like the younger versions of themselves. They darkened their hair and they took
Mhm.
out the gray, and um, they still had uh, Randall have that fucking mohawk or mullet. God, that was so bad. Um, yeah, yeah.
I know it was a stupid joke, but I laughed so goddamn hard when he's like, "Hey, we gotta do something about Dante." He's like, "Who's Dante?" I thought
Oh,
his
you mean
name was
Sergio?
Sergio.
Yeah, we'll do anything for Sergio.
So fucking dumb, but I laughed so hard. I laughed so goddamn hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was some other good stuff that was really like steeped in the original. Uh, I mentioned before the Asian design major. It's like, oh, that's racist. It's like, what? He's really into Asian design.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was Asian and a design major.
He
Yeah,
was
that was,
also Asian.
but he's also Asian.
I did not remember the events of Clerks 2 at all.
Clerks 2 was where he met Rosario Dawson.
Oh no, I
Yeah,
pieced it together.
yeah. He was with I can't remember the character's name, Kevin Smith's wife, and then they broke up because of the Donkey Show,
Hmm.
the events of the Donkey Show. And that's where Elias was introduced as a character because he was a big Lord of the Rings fan, and that's where he and Randall butted heads a lot.
I enjoyed the addition of blockchain.
Yep, yep. Uh, and so there was a show during the pandemic that was they gave actors and directors like an assignment and gave them 1 week to film something based on that assignment. Kevin Smith was one of the directors that was included in it. That person who was blockchain, his name's Austin. He's Harley,
His daughter's
his daughter's boyfriend. I think they're engaged at this point. But yeah, and they kind of did a little reference to that at the end where she gives him the look
yeah.
when they're at the funeral. Yeah, he was really good in that. He was really good at Blockchain Coltrane, which I did not realize was his full name until the credits.
You can talk.
Um, did either of you watch through the credits?
I fast forwarded to see the message at the end.
Okay, where Kevin
Like,
Smith's
there
talking.
was a message at the end, and I just kind of like, yeah, I totally forgot and got
Yeah.
it because I was in a hurry.
Yeah, it was he talks just it was kind of a thank you to the fans and talked a little more about what he intended for the last shot of of the movie, actually the last voiceover of the movie, because when it actually came to editing the film, that song was playing, and it was like, yeah, I'm not talking over this. This is the perfect way to go out, and it was. Um, but it was a nice little commentary about just the nature of the job that he wrote about, and how it gave him so much better perspective on people. Because as the job, he was like Randall. He hated the people.
Mhm.
The job would be great if it wasn't for the customers.
Yeah, I mean, which is like anybody who's ever worked customer service is like
Yep.
knows that feeling intimately.
Yeah. Well, and like I think that the thing that I fell in love with Clerks originally so hard was that, I mean, one, I'm their age, but all the conversations that they had were the conversations me and my buddies had. Like all the stupid Star Wars bullshit, all the
Stupid Star
making
Wars
fun,
bullshit.
all the making fun of idiot customers, all of it. I was like, that's me and my friends. Like that's just us.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what felt like most authentic, like because the acting was terrible in Clerks too, but like that
Yeah.
part of it felt really authentic. It's like, oh, this is a person that's worked customer service and has a lot of like the weird customer service stories you accumulate.
Hmm.
Just like, and I think that's what felt super authentic about the first one. And like, it's weird to revisit that feeling so long after, but not try and recapture that component of it. Try and recapture the feeling of making a movie about that feeling, uh, and of making a movie of that.
Right. Well, and
Like
it's
3 layers away.
it's not only that, but it's a matter of, and I think the thing that I took more out of it was after Kevin Smith's heart attack was you look at your legacy. What is my monument that I'm going to leave? And that's what, like, for the stage in life that I am, those guys are, you guys are careening toward. um, it's you start looking at that. It's like you've got more days behind you than in front of you, and like what's the legacy? And it was Randall being coming to the realization, like I think a lot of people do. It's like, what the fuck have I done with my life? What am I leaving behind? Is there something that's going to say I was here? And that's kind of what I was taking from this, and like the theme and the message of the movie for me. At least that's what spoke to me the most about it.
I chose to ignore the fact that heart attack was the primary motivator of this movie because the last time I had a creative entity have a life threatening scenario and then incorporate that life threatening scenario into a body of work that I loved, it was not the greatest.
Mm.
Stephen King wrote in a white van that runs down Stephen King in the Dark Tower series, and it's ridiculous and is also kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I'll accept it, but it's not my favorite.
I think the better choice was just to say what happened, and say, you know what, I had a heart attack and almost died, and I'm just going to write about that
Hmm.
because that shit affected me. And if there's any question about how much that affected Kevin Smith, is look at pictures of Kevin Smith about 10 years ago and look at pictures of him today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a different man.
Yeah, Silent Bob's a third of the size Silent Bob was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that like in some ways he follows a good balance of, yes, this is that kind of instigator, but also not making too much of it or making that experience too precious in a really real way. Because you see with Randall, when, and of course this is because this is his friend and he can't stand to lose his friend. That's why he minimizes it. But it's like clear how quickly, despite his near-death experience, that he's sort of lost the insight of how precious life and relationships are. He's gotten obsessed with this movie in this way that loses sight of that. But then also, like, when Dante has this heart attack, he's like, well, it's a lot. It reminded me a lot of the people, well, I had COVID. It was just a cold.
Yeah.
This sort of solipsism of, I suffered, I had this and pushed through it or whatever. So it couldn't possibly be any different or any worse for anyone else.
Yeah.
And so like, and I think there's a term for it. It's like something empathy. Is it temporal empathy or something? But it's basically, it has to do with like how basically we're really shitty at even like at number one, guessing what would make us happy or sad in the future. And also like remembering how bad we felt or how we felt in the past. So just because you've had an experience with something, people who've had that experience are generally like not necessarily any better or more compassionate or anything with people who are in it at the moment, because they're not in it in the moment.
Right.
And so like it was just super, because like there's definitely something to that, like that sort of near-death experience, but it has like its limits. And I think that he was really good about putting those, like making those limits really clear, and I kind of appreciated it.
Well, and it feels like there was a very real conversation that someone had with Kevin Smith that that Randall, or that Dante had with Randall when he was drunk and right before his own heart attack, was that like, oh, you're the only one who's ever had a heart attack. You were fine living a bullshit life before, but now look at me, I had a heart attack. Like, you can get over yourself now. It's time. Which I thought was knowing the impetus of why Clerks 3 was made, I thought that was a really good bit of self-reflection.
Yep. So, I mean, a lot of the, like I said in the beginning, like a lot of the jokes I felt they felt self-indulgent in a way that, like, I think Clerks earned, but Clerks 3 did not earn, right? Because, like, Clerks 3 had that real raw guerrilla feel to it, and I think Kevin Smith, in a lot of ways, tried to do some of those same jokes now at this point, like early on, which do not work now. Which like really turned me off to the movie just in general. But I think like halfway through, once I realized, oh, that's not what we're doing here. We're not making another Clerks movie. We're making a movie about making Clerks the movie.
Yeah.
And also, this is a Guardians 3. Let's close out this book movie.
Yeah, I think this. The important thing with this one is that where for Randall, it was his heart attack was motivation to get off his ass and do something. It felt like for Kevin Smith, like the mirror of that was, I need to get off my ass and put a resolution to some things. Let's close some books and do it in a graceful manner.
Yeah, baby, end on your own terms.
Yeah. And this felt that, I'm very aware of that. That's one of the rules. And like, I thought of that, at the end of the movie, I was like, yeah, he is ending on his own terms. He is closing this chapter in a way that it doesn't feel like anybody's making him do. It feels self-motivated. Like it's time to close this book.
Yeah, you can end on your own terms or end on someone else's.
Yep. And killing Dante feels like a firm close of that book. Like slam those pages together shut. And like I feel like this stuck the landing. I kind of hope Twilight of the Mallrats sticks the landing in a similar way, which is, I think it's still coming.
That's what I understand.
I think.
Twilight of the Mallrats. If only there was a way we
I
could
did like the sequence where they're auditioning people, and they get a bunch of famous people as part of the audition process.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Ethan Suplee shows up doing
just
the thing
sailboat.
from Mallrats. I went to a dark place there. It was a personal moment. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. One thing I did not realize, I was just looking in the trivia, the characters that come in the third act, Lisa, and Lando, the Black family, where apparently the character Lando was featured in the Clerks cartoon, which I did not realize. I have, but it's been a long time since I watched that. Apparently, there was a character named Lando, voiced by that guy. So this is actually the first live action appearance of the character Lando from the Clerks cartoon. Why the fuck do they have to swear so much?
Oh, did somebody say that?
Yeah, the mom, Lisa.
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Lisa.
Okay. Is somebody in the comments saying what?
No. That was a line from the show, from the movie.
Yes. No, I remember her. Yeah,
I did like the commentary about diversity too.
Yes.
Like, oh, you're shooting in black and white. See a lot of white. Not a lot of... Very true. Clerks was a very, very white, black and white movie.
There was that scene with the woman who tells off Randall, and then he tells her that she can't rent there anymore. And then she's like, all right, now it's my turn. And so they do the scene with her as Lucille Ball. And then she leaves like, what the fuck was that? She wanted to do it as Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was in there.
I don't know either, but I found it amusing. It's probably some inside joke.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most of this movie is inside jokes.
Yeah. This is not a movie where you can come in on the third one and through context clues understand what happened in the first two movies. Like, I mean, that's
basically how I remembered the second movie. But
yeah, but this movie really relied on the first movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had seen the first movie a few times, never saw the second movie, so I just read a lot about it.
Yeah.
This afternoon, and really want to see it now, but and then but I felt like it was fine because the more complex stuff was from the first movie, and that was the main piece for the second.
So. Yeah, if you hadn't seen the second one, I mean, there's a few bits that would be confusing, like who is Rosario Dawson?
Like, yeah, but I mean, I could read about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the context clues gave it.
There was enough context clues to figure out who she was, who Dante's ex-fiance was. Yeah, I did like Kevin Smith inserting his mom into the auditions. The one who jokes about how bad the writing is and his
Yeah.
mother should be ashamed. They cut back to the group and uh, Kevin Smith's over there going, "Yeah." Was anybody else distracted by Jason Mewes' teeth?
No.
They felt. I'm confident that they are very, very fake because he also did an incredible amount of heroin for a while. And that's actually the you're going to look it up and it's going to tell you that everybody assumes that he has fake teeth because of the heroin that he did, that
Yeah.
his teeth had rotted out. I've watched. I could see what you were doing.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is exactly what I did.
Yep.
That is exactly what I did.
Sure.
Okay. Oh no, and he confirmed that he wears fake teeth.
Oh, did he confirm it?
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be a surprise. In fact, with how open he is about his drug use and things like that, might as well. I mean, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
Take him out at some point and say, "Hey, kids, you don't want your teeth to look like
Yeah.
this. Don't do heroin."
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a rough addiction.
Yeah, they this movie did a lot, not only for people who only saw Clerks, but there was like a layers of Easter eggs for people who saw Clerks, people who saw Clerks 2, people who have watched all the deleted tracks
Mhm.
and the director's commentary and things like that, because there was layers of jokes in there about that. The the ending that was cut from the first movie.
Yeah.
They referenced that with the guy shooting Dante. I've seen the scene and it's jarring. It's like, wow, that's a dark ending to this movie, and he was actually talked out of putting it in. Um,
Probably for the best.
yeah,
Killing
yeah,
him 2 movies later was better.
yeah. 2 movies and 30 years later, close 28 years later, I think. Um, that and they did a play on the scene where Silent Bob is the one who delivers the line at the end of Clerks about there's a lot of fine women in this world.
Yeah. Mm.
Not not many of them bring you lasagna
Lasagna
at
at
work.
work.
Most of them just cheat on you. Um, in the original Clerks, this like all the dialogue Jay gives right before that. If you watch the scene and watch their faces, Jay is clearly drunk off his ass. He's also not 21 years old at the time, but he is clearly intoxicated, stumbling over himself. His eyes are glazed over. And Kevin Smith is standing right next to him and is just shooting him daggers. He is just pissed. His jaw is tight. Like you can just see he is not happy in that moment. But that's also why he ends up delivering the line about that, because apparently Muse just could not do it because he was so drunk.
Can relate. I never deliver my best lines when I'm drunk.
I don't know that I have a whole lot else to say. I
Me
I
either.
really enjoyed it. It was it tapped just the right amount of nostalgia for a movie that I really love.
Mm.
And it felt like it stuck the landing for wrapping up this group of characters.
Mhm. So, do you think Twilight of the Mallrats will be the end of the whole universe?
Ah, Maybe.
Whatever it's called the Askew.
The View Askew
View Askew.
universe.
Yeah.
I think it will. There's not. I mean, I can't imagine them being able to do like a Dogma 2. And it feels like they've kind of milked out the Jay and Silent Bob movies. Like I don't know that I necessarily need another Jay and Silent Bob movie. They were fine. I enjoyed them, but I don't need another one. I don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kevin Smith is done with it enough that after Mallrats, after a conclusion of Mallrats,
Mm-hmm.
there doesn't need to be more.
Yeah.
He's got other venues to play in.
Mm-hmm.
Though I have heard, and I hope it's true, that there's going to be a new cut of Jersey Girl coming out that adds in like 30 to 40 more minutes of material that it was at the beginning. It was getting to know the Ben and Jen marriage before they kill her off, because after Gigli, they completely changed the marketing on this movie. They cut a bunch of stuff out of it because they just assumed, rightfully so, that the whole Ben Affleck Jennifer Lopez thing had turned kind of toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I'm not mistaken, even at this point, they might not have been together anymore. I could be wrong about the timing of that, but Gigli had definitely come out before Jersey Girl and tanked terribly, and rightfully so. That movie was awful. But like, I know Kevin Smith did not want it released that that the Jennifer Lopez character died.
Yeah.
He was, he had, from what I understand, he had trailers such that they only took any footage from the first part of the movie. So when you got to the point where she died and you realize she's just not there anymore, that he wanted that to be really shocking for the audience. But once things turned toxic after Gigli, that's actually prominently featured in the marketing of the movie. That she dies and it's going to be about Ben raising the kid.
I do not. I know we watched this movie and then reviewed it, and I do not remember it at all.
I actually really, really love the movie. It's weird because I remember a lot of I was following Kevin Smith very closely at that time, and he was just raving about the movie, how much he loved it, how it was a love letter to his father who had just passed away, all this stuff. And then right before the movie came out, he started kind of shitting on the movie. Like not right before, he kind of was like, you could tell he was kind of tempering expectations about it. And then within the first couple of weeks, he's like, oh yeah, that was shit. That's, I can't believe we got away with making it. It was just a really weird kind of reversal to everything. But it almost felt like he could see the writing on the wall after Gigli. There's nothing you can do after a movie tanks with those two leads, and then your movie is still coming out.
Yep.
I think the other thing was that he actually produced and completed Jersey Girl while they were still finishing Gigli, but because of some contracts, that had to be released first, which really pissed him off because he knew it would be great if he could get his out there first. But
I wanted to see when we did it, but I cannot find when we did it.
yeah, I don't remember.
The website's not up, Tony.
Yeah, I know. I gotta fix that. I haven't quite figured out what's wrong with it to fix it though.
So I am curious, Tony, and this might be a conversation for not on the podcast or for a different time. Why don't you like real estate?
Uh,
Like, is it? I mean, I get this. Like, do you like suspense? I know BSP doesn't do a ton of horror suspense. Like,
um, I like suspense movies.
mhm.
I'm not as much a fan of horror movies,
Uh-oh.
just because I find most of them to not have a strong message. I mean, the 80s horror movies, it was all about, they were all morality plays. You know, it was,
Sure.
you know, every person who did a bad thing was the one, you know, ooh, you had premarital sex, you're dead. Ooh, you did drugs, you're dead.
Yeah.
Ooh, you were drinking underage. So unless there's one that has a really strong message, but I won't know about that till after the fact, and it's like, oh, you really need to see this one, and it's like, all right, well, I'll see it. And um, Babadook was a good example. Like, I really, really enjoyed that movie, and we talked about it on the podcast, but it's because the movie is not a horror movie. It's it's a discussion about grief,
Yeah.
and it's a brilliant one at that, in the trappings of a horror movie.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. Red State, I think my biggest problem with Red State is it felt loose. It felt, even though it was a shorter film, I felt like it could have used a really good solid edit. And I think a lot of my dislike of it comes from the fact that um I know Kevin Smith can edit movies better than that. And so it was a disappointment in based on expectation of the skill level of the people involved. So I'm sure that's part of it. Um, and I just didn't find the story that interesting. And I think part of it was that it could have used a good edit.
Yeah.
And the other part of I think the other part of the disappointment in that is because it was within a year or two before that that he got really into pot. Like, really, really, really into pot. Like, he was kind of an icon of the culture because of Silent Bob.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from what I understand, like, he didn't use until,
Like
I mean,
2009, 2010 or something.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, especially in the last 10 years.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But he was also fighting to keep Muse clean through a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget. I was able to see Kevin Smith in one of those, performance stand-up kind of things at a convention in Chicago in 2001. And yeah, 2001.
Jesus.
It was, and actually, as part of that convention, I donated some money and was able to see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back like a week or two before it was released.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that was neat. And Kevin and Muse did a little Q&A right before it and after it. But when Kevin Smith was doing his stand-up thing, Muse was on stage, and like, it's a panel, so they've got a long set of tables behind them where there's normally a lot of people. In this case, it was Muse, and I think one other person was back there. But he had somebody bring him coffee, and I was kind of just, the angle was he was like right in my line of sight. Like, he was like, I could see him as I'm watching Kevin Smith talk. But he has somebody bring him a coffee, and then he starts pouring sugar into this coffee. And it had to be in the mid to high teens of just tearing open a sugar packet, putting it in, putting it in. And it was like, oh wow, man, he's going through something. He's either in rehab or he's not, you know. But it was clear that he was processing something, maybe in distress, maybe, maybe intoxicated. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I
there
mean,
was something going on.
when people are withdrawing, they tend to have real big issues, like withdrawing from alcohol, at least, like real big issues with blood sugar and sugar cravings and that kind of thing. I don't know if that happens. I've heard of people like when they quit cigarettes. I don't know what the physiology is behind that. They tend to crave sugar a lot.
I know one of the things with cigarettes, because my mom smoked for decades, and she's was finally able to kick the habit after numerous attempts. Um, I know one of the things is, with cigarette smokers especially, is they need to find a way to replace the repetitive motion of smoking a cigarette also, along with the nicotine, the addiction to the nicotine and things like that, is they get so used to this that they have to do something. Um, I attended something with her that was about the like the smoking cessation, but it was also like they were talking about a number of things. So it was like lose weight, stop smoking. It was like one of those catch-all kind of things.
Be better.
That was that was all the rage in the late 80s, early 90s. But like one of the things they suggested, and I kind of got a little addicted to it for a while, was to replace the motion of that and the physical object with a cinnamon stick.
Oh, sure.
Like an actual go to the grocery store and buy, have to break them apart because they're all curled up. But when you break them, the length, the width, the weight, it's very, very similar to holding a cigarette. And I have never smoked anything in my life, but I really enjoyed, just the act of having the cinnamon stick. And it was like, I kind of got a little hooked on.
There is something about, and for something that about smoking, and for something that has come relatively late. I mean, I'm sure like mid to late 19th century that people were smoking cigarettes in the way that we think of.
Right.
It's not that old, but there's something between the nicotine and then the action and the regular break taking. It just fulfills so much as a practice. I smoked for a really short amount of time. And like quitting it wasn't even a drama. I could never call myself addicted, but there's something about when the weather is a certain kind of crisp, where I crave it still.
Oh, that's when I crave Archon.
I will still crave it. When I get stressed, I crave it.
Sure.
And I don't, because my asthma is really bad. And I even, because I have ADHD, and because of the Adderall shortages, I've been figuring out different ways. And I tried to like experiment with nicotine patches, and
oh wow,
which made me really sick. Like I just
yeah
even at a really low level, and just my body isn't there for that. But yeah, and I thought, well, shoot, if I didn't have asthma, I could smoke, which would be a terrible idea. Even if I didn't, but like, and it's just, there's something in the culture around it. I also as part of that, I also smoked cloves. So that was a phase.
I had a stint with cloves for a while.
All the girls in black did. All the girls working at Barnes and Noble smoked cloves. And
that tracks. Yeah.
And so, there's something super rich about the nature of smoking. That's, I don't know. Yeah, it's a difficult habit to stop for a reason. For a lot of reasons.
I like that they brought back the the Chulies guy,
Yeah.
the Chulies gum guy, and they
And the
still had
nails.
the nails cigarettes, and
Yeah.
All right, I got nothing else here, and I want to be a Jedi.
same.
So
Yep, and I
Right.
need to probably start thinking about packing.
no, don't do that. Just leave.
I'm gonna take a nap first. I'm gonna sleep overnight at least. I'm leaving in about 12 hours. So
Well, safe travels.
thanks. We'll hopefully I'll have an interesting story or two at least out of the trip.
Road trip
Hopefully
stories.
nothing too interesting, but
Road trip stories.
yep. All right. Next week we will talk about 45 years.
45
Sounds good.
years.
All right. See you guys.
Yep.
See you. Bye bye.